I go to a conference every year about trees and tree failures, and it's an amazing conference. I really look forward to it. We all get to look at amazing failures, big trees that go down. And we all love to see the trees that crash onto buildings and cars and cause all kinds of damage. Not so much because we like to see the damage, but we like to figure out what's going on. We also like to look at unusual trees and specimens and circumstances. Go figure there, huh? We also look at historical pictures of things that used to be and the ways of the past. And there's always the unusual situation out in the forest that you just can't figure out. Now look at that tree. That thing is amazing. Just the characteristic, well, that one speaks for itself. Now occasionally we look at big failures and we try to figure out what's going on to the point of we see that sometimes it's a man-made cause or sometimes it's caused by a fungus. Here we've got armillaria, the oak root fungus. Here we've got the Laetiporus sulphurus, that's also called the chicken of the woods. And by the way, it's very tasty. This story now goes back to 1964 when these people planted this oak tree. They called me and said, my oak tree fell down. And when I pulled up, this is what I saw. I looked over the house and I saw this big oak tree standing up in the backyard. And I thought, well, what's going on there? Later on, she showed me a picture of what the tree looked like about 30 years ago. I went into the backyard and, well,
the thing is huge. Has somebody been up here working already? I see some fresh spur marks.
Yep, we've got a massive failure back here. This live oak was planted in 1964, so it really wasn't that old, but it was absolutely enormous. I was able to get behind this stump and look at the roots, and I was able to deduce that the tree's root system was entirely rotten. But what was amazing is when you looked up at the canopy of the tree, the living foliage that was still up there, you really couldn't tell by looking at the foliage that there was this much rot in the base of the tree. All of the roots were really spongy where they broke off, and you could see, lots of white rot fungus under the ground. Now, trying to figure these things out is really hard. It's easy to say, well, maybe they just didn't have enough of a rooting zone, or maybe there was some compaction, and maybe there was water sitting there that caused this problem. It's generally a whole number of different problems, and in this case, it's very likely a combination of problems as well. What I couldn't see was evidence of root severing or anything that would have led me to the conclusion that the tree was indeed hazardous. Interestingly, they had another arborist out there a couple years before who did not state that this tree was dangerous, did not see any evidence, did not see any problems. And what truly amazed me was, for the size of this tree and the catastrophic failure, how little damage actually occurred. More often than not, we run into situations where you expect things to be really catastrophic, and I guess it's just the luck of the draw, but many times the trees happen to fall in positions that don't cause just too much damage. I mean, granted, there's a lot of damage here, but it's not to the point of where the house was going to fall down or anybody was killed. And it certainly could have. It could have been absolutely horrific. But these failures can and do happen. And to identify the failures and see what's going on ahead of time is really a challenge. So thank you for taking the time to watch my brief presentation. My name is Blair Glenn, and this is Arborist Blair Glenn.